Welcome to Behind the Smile with Ash Butterss, a podcast designed to reveal the truth behind the masks we wear. Together, we look to demystify the human mind and its behaviours in relation to mental health, trauma and addiction. My name's Ash and I'll be your host as we uncover the real stories of people's pain and the steps they've taken to live a life of freedom in recovery. From sobriety to spirituality, join me each week as we uncover the reasons why people seek recovery and how their lives have changed by living one day at a time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Today, I'm being joined by Luke Bayliss. Luke made the decision to get sober on the 1st of November 2022 after years of struggling with depression, anxiety, an eating disorder, and addiction. Today, Luke is a sobriety advocate who is on a mission to share his story so it doesn't become yours. Now, dialing in from the UK, I would love to warmly welcome Luke onto the show. Good morning, Luke. It's bright and early. Welcome to Behind the Smile.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I mean, it's still dark outside here and it's raining, so not exactly. I bet it's nice where you are, obviously in Australia.
We're starting to warm up. I live in Melbourne, which is down the south end of Australia, and we tend to stay cooler for a longer period of time. So what are we now? Yeah, moving into November, it's like just starting to warm up now, which is really, really nice. But
Wow.
yeah, it's we had daylight savings tick over as well, and I think that always makes a difference. It's nice to be able to wake up to a bit of light and then get home from work. Well, I mean, I work from home, but you know, getting at the end of the day, when I leave the studio, the yoga studio at night, it's still light, and that's really nice. So yeah, we're kind of swapping turns now with you over in the
it's
UK.
the opposite here. As soon as our clocks go back, it's literally dark at like 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's just like,
that's wild.
I know. I'm such a summer person as well, like getting up at like 5 and getting outside, and now I'm like, do I want to go outside in this? Like, literally rain, dark, cold, but yeah, have to do it. Is
it true that people in the UK and or in Europe in general get seasonal depression? So when it goes into those winter months, it's really impact your mental health?
Really, there's a lot of this. I mean, I haven't gone into it too deeply, but there's a lot as well about the moon and the different, like, so when you're going from like summer to autumn and so forth, there's a big shift in energy. So I notice it a lot as well. Like your mood does go a lot more calmer, a lot more inward, a lot more. You're meant to spend that time reflecting and rebuilding your energy. But yeah, we definitely get it here. I think it's because it's so dramatic from summer to winter. Such a difference that it's like, whoa.
Yeah. I remember being in the UK during, it must have been one of the first warm days of the year. And I just remember I was in London and everybody went to Hyde Park and had their shirts off.
Yeah, it's either like 6 layers or nothing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, look, I'm super pumped for this conversation today, and I'd love for our audience just to get to know a little bit more about you. So can we kick it off with, where do you live exactly? We know you're in the UK, but I want to know where. What does an average day look like, and what do you do for fun?
Okay, so things look very, very different nowadays to what they used to, as you'll find out. I'm originally from Stratford-upon-Avon, Shakespeare World. I grew up there, yeah, and then I ran off to London when I was 20 to study music, and I was there for about 12 years. But then, as you'll find out in my story, when things got pretty tough, I left rehab hospital, the Priory, and I came to live in Wales, where my parents live. So I'm currently, it's a funny time at the moment because I'm currently still in Wales. So I've been here about a year, but I'm now at that point where I'm ready to move on. So I think I'm going to be moving soon. So that's good.
Where are you thinking of moving to?
Do you know? Well, you won't know, sorry, but Henley on Thames, basically, it's a really nice part of the world, yeah. So yeah, I think I'm going to be moving there very soon. But I mean, Wales has been great. It was like a reset button, you know. And for fun now, very differently to back in the day. So I'm one of those annoying, cheesy morning people where I get up, I bounce out of bed, and then I get outside at like 5:30, go for a run. I love, like, running's my thing now. Absolutely love it. Training for a marathon. Yeah, and all about just being outside as much as I can, really. I'm a musician, so I play a lot of guitar, but now it's more of a hobby, but that's great. I've refound that since I've gone sober because I put that on the shelf for
Mm.
so long, as you can imagine. Um,
Mm.
and just connecting, really. Like, I mean, I've got a lot of sober, friends that I've met from the sober community that now are like, we've got a deeper connection, actual true friendships, rather than those, drinking friendships that we always used to have.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, even this weekend, we're going to the local forest here. My mate's coming down to see me. He's going to stay over, and then we're just going to go out and hike all day. Climbed Snowdon not so long ago. Things like that. Things that I always
Mm.
thought I would never, ever, ever like doing. I'm now that person.
Yeah. So back in the day, would you look at those like really fit, healthy people and just think, oh, what losers?
No way. I'd be like, what are you doing? Why would you want to climb a mountain when you could be in the pub? And now I'm like, why
Yeah.
would you want to be in the pub when you can climb a mountain? Do you know what I mean? So,
It's
it,
amazing, that shift in
mm,
mindset, isn't it?
oh, absolutely crazy. Like, we'll get into this, but I think I even said once, don't trust people who don't drink. I mean, why would I say that? And then now I'm
Yeah.
like, that is me.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like I said, yeah. So from Stratford-upon-Avon, live in Wales at the moment, but I'm moving, and my interests and things that I do now are so different. Like, yeah, so exercise, hiking, stuff like that. I've just recently started a sober platform, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
Just to try and build a sober community around connection, really. So I'm head first into that.
That's unreal.
Um,
What inspired you? Is that sober life?
yeah, sober life guides. Yeah. So
Mm.
me and my other half, Jess, we were just like, right, we really want to do something. What can we do? What's the most important thing? And it's all just around connection. When you're feeling alone and you're first starting out, you need connection. So we're just building an online community, really, just for people to chat, share their experiences, help each other out, and give guidance,
That's
really.
unreal. And did
Yeah.
you meet Jess when you got sober or beforehand?
When I got sober. So relationships in the past have been very not the best, a bit toxic all around. Everything's around drinking and hangovers and silly arguments. And now I met Jess. We met at a sober event, and we just,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's pretty mad, yeah. And we just clicked. And from being sober, I mean, I sound like another cheeseball here, but you just don't have that drama and that toxicity of some relationships in the past, and it's just all very chilled, which
I
I'm
know
not
what
really
you
used
mean.
to.
I'm in a sober relationship as well, and
Yeah,
oh my
yeah,
goodness, like you just don't have those ridiculous fights. There's no, like, I
mad.
think that you touched on the connection piece, but also the communication piece. Like for
Oh,
me, I've never been in such a healthy, functional relationship, and I
yes.
truly believe, like, number one, we're both sober, but number two, we're also both active in recovery, and we continue
Hmm.
to do the work, so we get to grow together, which I think is really
That's amazing.
fundamental.
That's what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
my other half, I won't go on for too long, but she's also got ADHD, and she's also got PMDD, which is like a around menstrual cycle, and it's basically like
Mm,
BPD or bipolar. It's very similar. I'm not a
mm,
professional,
mm.
so I don't know if that's right, but so I've got ADHD and cyclothymia. She's got PMDD and ADHD, and it's like, should this work? But it works perfectly because she understands me, I understand her. And I think if we were
Mm.
neurotypicals, I don't know whether you'd be like, I mean, you'd probably run a mile and be like, oh my God, like your mood's so up and down, but we kind of sync somehow. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
you
yeah,
almost just get it without even needing to say
it's
anything. You
weird.
probably understand what the other one's going through.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Mental health disorders combined as a relationship, but it seems it's working perfectly. So
I love
we'll
to
see.
hear that. I love to hear that. Now, Luke, you do have a big story, and I really want to dive into that today. But before we do, I've asked you to bring in a photo. Now, this
Oh
photo
dear.
is from a time in your life where you are hiding behind a smile. So you were presenting one version of yourself to the outside world, but the reality was you were really struggling on the inside. Could you please describe for our audience who may be listening and not watching right now, what does this photo look like? Describe the photo, and then also let me know what was going on for you at that time in your life.
Okay, so this photo to me, I use this a lot because it's so. I actually did a before and after. So I took this photo literally just before I went to the Priory, which is a mental health hospital. In case you guys don't know, because I know you're in Australia, obviously. Um,
Mm.
this is just before I went into hospital, and then I took another one exactly. Well, it was about nearly a year later, and the before and after is just incredible. Anyway, so here I am. I'm 2 stone heavier. My face is
How many
huge.
kilos is that? Do we know? What's the conversion from stone to kilos?
Oh,
I know. I never know when you guys say stone. I don't know
I
what
know.
it means.
That's so old school, isn't it? I should say. I think I wouldn't like to say 90 something. I think I'm now 83 or something. Anyway, yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay, so a
14
significant
pounds.
amount.
14 pounds
Okay,
is a
so
stone.
about
So
7-ish kilos. Okay, we're going to butcher this. Everyone ignore us. Continue.
yeah, afterwards I'll be like, damn. Yeah, so quite a lot heavier. My eyes, it always can tell in the eyes, can't you? My eyes were almost like in my body. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, I look very, 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 very unhealthy, unwell, sad. I always say like so much sadness in a smile. Like you see a smile, but you can tell in this photo that there's so much sadness going on behind it. I'm wearing a mask entirely. Like I look so unhealthy, so sad. I'm overweight. So at this time, I'd literally just come out of almost like a breakdown, and my parents kind of grabbed me from my house and like took me to theirs, and this is a photo of me there. And then after this, this is why it's quite relevant. After this, I went home and I then stayed isolated in the house, drinking again, and that's when I fell to my knees for another second time. And then I went to a hospital, inpatient hospital, for 6 weeks. No, 4 weeks, sorry. 4 weeks this time. And that's when everything changed. So this photo is like the pinnacle moment just before the rescue mission. And I was just, I mean, unfortunately, I was someone who isolated. So it wasn't social anymore. It became about survival. I was in survival mode. And I took it to a place where I wouldn't be sat here right now if I hadn't got the help that I've got. So I was very lucky. So not going on too far from what you said, but yeah, it's an awful photo. I always look like Humpty Dumpty with a hangover. I don't know, is Humpty Dumpty? You know, it's
the reference.
Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and I'm like, I look like Humpty Dumpty had a fall off a cliff in this photo. So yeah, really
Humpty
unhappy.
Dumpty had a big night. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Luke. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. It's
no problem.
yeah, like looking at you now through the screen, they look like 2 completely different people. So
it's mad.
Congratulations on your recovery and all the work that you've put into getting.
Thank you. Yeah. My niece saw this photo and she was like, she wouldn't allow us to say it to me because she was like, "That's not you, Luke, that's not you." And I was like, "Do you know what? I don't look like me anymore. It's weird." The transformation's incredible. Yeah.
Now you're more reflective of the real you. The outside's starting to match the insides, which is really nice.
I was never me ever. Yeah.
So Luke, I'd love to take it back then. Can you help me understand what were some of the significant moments throughout your childhood that influenced the person that you grew up to be who became dependent on alcohol and other substances?
Mm-hmm. So for me, growing up from a very young age. So, I mean, primary school here, the age of 3 or 4? And I remember from the age of 4 to 11, which is primary school, I have vivid memories of going home, crying my eyes out, not wanting to go to school. I was a very naughty child. I think it was just all about attention because I was overweight. And I mean, at that age, looking back, it's so silly because who knows, like you just big kid or things like that. But the kids used to bully me quite badly. I mean, what do you label bullying? I always just thought, they would just take, it was a bit of whatever, but it used to really affect me. I remember we went swimming once and I think one of the kids made some comment about, have you weighed yourself recently and stuff like this? And I'm only like 6, 7 years old. And yeah, so it started from there. Very unhappy, didn't like going to school. And then when I went to secondary school, high school, it continued. So it was like, it cemented in my brain, if these kids are saying it and the last kids were saying it, then I must be overweight and ugly, and I just hated myself. And then I got to the age of 14 And I was like, right, I've had enough of this. So I basically I just starved myself. So I just didn't eat. And then when I had to eat, when I got home with my parents, I then found out that I could throw up, be sick. Not a nice thing, is it? But and I remember we used to go for family meals and we'd eat, and then I'd go to the toilet and then get rid, like be sick. And then I'd go back to the table, and I remember having bloodshot eyes and thinking, oh, are they going to know that I've been sick or blah, blah, blah. And no one ever said anything, but they must have known because it was just all the time. So, yeah, from that, I was very insecure, had no confidence, really. I mean, I was one of the popular kids, but it was like my friends that were bullying me. It was really weird. Anyway, so as soon as I had the opportunity, as soon as I sampled alcohol at the age of like 17, 16, it was like a switch went on, and it was like, right, this makes me feel so much more comfortable, makes me feel more confident, makes me feel like all that awkwardness and self-esteem issues, like they just kind of floated away. So to me, it was like it dug its claws in me very early on. And then it just went from there. So college was like 18 years old. And that's when I found alcohol and drugs and things. And it was just like, I wasn't just doing it. I wasn't just doing it to have fun with my friends. I was doing it to feel better in myself. So it was all about self-soothing. I was basically self-medicating. And that's why we'll get to this, but I wish I'd been diagnosed with ADHD at this time, because I would have been able to I could have prevented so much pain and anxiety, and if I'd have just known what was going on. But because I had no idea, I just thought everyone was the same. I was like, oh, everybody's insecure and wants to drink to have a good time, because our culture is so, especially in England, our culture is so drink, drink, drink. If you can't drink 8 pints with your mates, then you're not man enough, and all this absolute rubbish. So it was all around drinking from a young age. And then, so
Luke, can I pause you for a second? I want to
yeah.
go back to something you said early on there, where you said from a really young age, I needed attention.
Yes.
And that played out in disruptive behavior is what I was picking up there. What do you think it was about little Luke that craved attention?
I think personally, I actually think that, like, I was ridiculed a lot. So I had friends, but I even remember vividly that we had this game where we'd be like, there's 3 of us, and we'd be like, oh, let's fall out with Luke today. And they used to like fall out with me for no reason whatsoever. And then it'd just be like, what's this? It'd be weird. So I think it was just the environment that I was in school. And then also my home life was amazing, but my dad was very much work, and he's not like that now, but he was always very old school, very like, it was the whole concept of if you cry, you're not a man, or manner. Do you know what I mean? And I used to get in trouble at school, and then like he'd see like the comments, and he'd like go absolutely ballistic at me and things like that. And I'm not blaming my family. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that I think maybe it was more about like I was reached. I think it was like I think I wanted validation. So I think if I was disruptive in school and I was the class clown, I was trying to make people laugh. And if they laughed, it was like validation that actually I can be likable. Do you know? So that's exactly what it was. Like if the teacher said don't go on the climbing frame, I'd be there at the top straight away. And it was a bit of a like. I think it's been the same my whole life. It's like validation. Like I think like if people, I've got rejection sensitivity as well through ADHD, which we'll get to. But it's this constant thing of like overthinking, wondering what people are thinking about you. I'm fine now, but I used to be really bad and presuming the worst all the time, catastrophizing. And I think I can remember being like that from a very young age. Like the question you've asked, like it was just always about, I think, validation, trying to make my head real, like trying to calm that awkwardness in my head and those thoughts that people don't like me. I think it was always like if people laugh, it's like they like me. Do you know what I mean? So very unhealthy way of trying to feel good in yourself, really, isn't it? But
and did that then exacerbate any sort of anxiety disorder for you? Because I imagine that it would be quite unsettling to have this really busy mind that's constantly telling you that people don't
Mm.
like you and that you need to be this and that and you're not good enough and needing validation. And I can imagine that would have been quite unsettling.
Yes, it was. I mean, I got diagnosed very late with depression and anxiety before I got diagnosed with ADHD. Anxiety massive. I mean, I was always very awkward. Like, I used to do public speaking, which we'll get onto about when I used to work, and I was terrible. I'd stand in front of everyone, and before they'd even looked at me, I had catastrophized that it had been a disaster. It had never going to go the way that I wanted it to. I can't I can't actually function as a normal human being. I've always got to say the wrong thing, or I could never stand still or sit still. I mean, even now I'm moving my legs, which is quite funny. Yeah, so I anxiety from a very young age. I discovered music at the age of 15, and that's where I just immersed myself into that world. The kids would be playing football in the playground, and I'd be in the music room on my own with headphones on, playing guitar, and that's quite a good example really of what it was like. And then I just had hyper focus on it, so I'd play guitar 6-7 hours a day, whenever I wasn't at school I was playing guitar. So it was this escape, this world of instead of being with the kids after school outside, I'd be in my bedroom playing guitar at this age, so anxiety 100%, but I think I covered it with music and then obviously alcohol. So it was I never really sorted it. I just doused it with petrol.
Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah,
a lot of sense. And then
yeah,
with the eating disorder, I'm really curious. Do you think that your family didn't say anything because they didn't have the tools, or was it taboo? And I ask this only because I had a similar experience. I was
yeah.
restricting and purging at around the
Hmm.
same age, 13, 14, 15. And I remember my parents weren't actually capable of sitting me down and having a conversation. So how they approached it was, I remember it was a Sunday evening and 60 Minutes was doing a special on eating disorders, and my
Mm.
parents made me watch it. And then
Okay.
we never spoke about it again. And I always think back to that time. It was, we now have so many more tools, and my dad's in recovery, and we have a really open, beautiful, healthy level of
Amazing.
communication within our family system. But back then we didn't. And you only know what you know, right? So again, I
Yeah.
certainly don't blame them, but I'm just curious, what do you think the reasoning was for your family not to ask what was really going on?
Well, what actually happened is that it was exactly like you've just said. The thing with my family is my sister, I've got two older sisters. My eldest sister has bipolar type 1, and she was always um, getting into trouble and so forth. And because my dad was so busy with work, which is amazing because that's how he worked every hour that there was, and my mom looked after us. That's cool, but there was never really that kind of it was very. My dad always struggled with emotions, so he'd never be able to sit me down and have a kind of discussion around things like this. It was always swept under the carpet. And I think my mom was so anxious about what my dad would think, she kind of ignored it. Does that make sense? I had an accident once where I got hit by a car, but I was out with my friends when I shouldn't have been, and I was crying and things. I'm going off topic here, but and my mom's exact words were, "Just don't tell your father, don't tell your father." And I was obviously in a bad way. And that's a great example of what we're saying. It was never discussed; it was brushed, under the carpet.
Yeah, that
But
makes
there
sense.
did come a time where I lost so much weight. I remember I was lying on the sofa watching telly, and obviously my t-shirt must have risen up or whatever. But you could see my hip bones, and I'll always remember this. I was only about 15, and my mum said, "Right, Luke," it's the only thing she's ever said. She said, "Right, if you don't start sorting your eating out, we're going to have to get you help." And that's when I thought, "Oh, okay." And then I sorted it out, but enough to cover it. So it's more of a masking again. I'd be like, right, I best eat for a bit then. And my mind was this evil, we'll eat enough so they won't recognise anymore, and then we'll stop eating again. And that's gone on my whole life up until the age of, I'm 37 now. I reckon into my 30s. I used to work, not eat all day, and then feel good. I'd feel proud of myself for not eating all day. that's the mindset I had. It was crazy, absolute craziness. So that's why they never said anything, but they did say that one time, and that's when I kind of changed, and it wasn't so bad anymore. It wasn't so obvious, sorry. Yeah.
And so you mentioned you found alcohol, and that was almost like the solution to
Mm-hmm.
this mental torment
Yeah.
that was going on for you. And tell me about what that progression looked like, because I imagine you started drinking and, you weren't a daily drinker at
Yeah,
the beginning.
exactly. Yeah. So it was all binge drinking, obviously, from a young age. I discovered alcohol. I also discovered other things, substances and things, and it was always head first for me. So what started out as at the weekends, I remember my friends would be like, "Oh, let's get on it this weekend," and that would be the frame of the mindset. But then the next day, I'd want to carry on. Like with me, it's always been carry on because I can't handle hangovers. I always want to self-soothe. So if I wake up feeling rough, I'd carry on. And I did this from this age as well. I remember always taking it too far. We'd go out and have a big drink. My friends would stop and go home. I'd always drink in the mornings, try and feel better, and then I'd probably just go to bed and sleep it off. And that's how it crept up. Started off like that. And because you're at that age where it's almost acceptable because you're young, it's fine. It was fine, so I just carried on. Now, I started drinking a lot all the time, and the best way to cover up a drink problem is to socialise a lot. So I had a big group of friends. We'd go out all the time. At 21, I bought a new car. I think my parents were like, get a car, because they thought it'd stop me drinking. I brought a new car, and after having it for a month, I went to the local town, got drunk, drove home like an absolute idiot. I went round a corner too fast and I crashed into a house.
Oh my goodness.
I wrote, this is like a real massive thing. This is, I still don't forgive myself for this. Yeah, all the self-forgiveness stuff. Anyway, I crashed into a house, not a car. And I panicked. I got out and it was like a war zone. Like seriously, like it was like there was dust, bricks, mortar, like breeze blocks. I remember there was blocks everywhere. It was very bad. He wrote the car off anyway. It's a brand new car, the police came. I got arrested. I spent a night in the cells. I had to go to court over it. The engineer said that he looked at the building and he said that if I was a certain amount of inches to the left or right, I'd have gone into the building and I would have killed myself and the family that were inside. There was a couple inside who had a dog, and he'd been downstairs not long before to let the dog out, and they said that like if he hadn't have gone back upstairs, then who knows what would have happened as well. So absolutely horrific, like terrible. And obviously nowadays that would be a very massive eye opener for me, and I'd stop drinking, but I buried my head in the sand and I just thought, right, what am I going to do? I'll tell you what, I'll just bury it. I'll bury it deep inside. I won't acknowledge it properly. I'll run off to London. So yeah, I mean the house had to be propped up as well. It was that bad. It was really bad, and it was in my local village as well. So my parents were like mortified. So I got banned from driving, and a massive fine and all this kind of stuff. And then because I'm a musician, well, because I was a musician, I ran off to London to do a degree in music. So from there, I went to London, lived with my best friend, like we were like brothers, but we were exactly the same. Drink, 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 drink. So all we did was drink, and I was really in a bad way back then. I used to go to lectures drunk. And because we perform, I used to have like, to me, performing well after a few drinks, I perform better. So that whole time was all about alcohol as well. And then went on to work in London, and that was the same. So it's gone from it started as a recreational kind of I feel better, it's fine, and then it's just progressed very quickly, very like what's the word? It became who I was. I defined myself as alcohol. Like that was me. It was all about that. And every opportunity, I used to sneak off to the toilets to drink in rehearsals so that I'd feel better. I mean, they must have known. I look back now and I think, oh, at the time I thought, oh, I'm all right. I'll just put a chewing gum in. It must have been awful. It must have been so obvious, but no one ever really said anything. So it just progressed from there. So what should have been, I should have stopped after the accident, just got worse and worse and worse. And I just drank all the time at every opportunity. I used to go out in the local city. I'd be gone for 3 days. I'd come back on a Sunday night looking like a warmed up corpse, and I'd just like levitate in like Dracula and then go to sleep for 2 days. And it's a really sad thing to look back on. I'm doing a life journal over it because I thought, right, I want to be accountable and I want to go through all these things that I've done because I don't want to bury them deep anymore. So I'm writing a lot. So I'm going through all that and I have to sit in it. And I think back now and I'm like, my God, how did I do all that? And no one, like, I'm not blaming anyone else, blaming myself, but how can it get that bad so quickly for such a long period of time and just ignore it? I just ignored it completely. So I was wearing this mask, like we said, constantly.
And Luke, was that desire to want to drink to that extreme being driven by your need to self-medicate? Was it the mental health stuff that was really sort of what was driving you?
Massively. So when I went to I've been to the Priory, which is a mental health hospital. I've been twice. First time I went for 6 weeks for addiction. I came out, had a breakdown again, and just it all went completely wrong. Went back again, which was only last November 1st. I went back, and that's when I got diagnosed with ADHD. And
oh wow, so it was that recent?
Yeah, very recent. And there's a huge thing around SUD, AUD, so substance use disorder. If you've got ADHD, there's a big link between the two, which is obviously what I had. It's been diagnosed. And so it's all around self-soothing, self-medicating. Now, my mental health, my executive functions, basically the management system of my brain in regards to goals, regulating emotions, there's like 6. Sorry, if I'm going off on one, please tell me. But so
keep going.
Your executive functions are it's basically if your brain was the company and your brain's the headquarters, and you split the brain into different kind of departments to help the company achieve their goals, achieve success, and you'd have those managers. So you'd have 6 managers, and if the brain's that, if these 6 managers, like for neurotypicals, these 6 managers work perfectly together. So they all work in harmony and sync. They're amazing, and for people with ADHD, me specifically, personally, talking about me, mine don't work together very well. They should all be like either sacked or put on some sort of like, pip or something. Anyway, and it's around, working memory, self-awareness, self-motivation, inhibition, regulating your emotions. I've forgotten one. I always forget one. But working memory, there you go, forgot one. And these are the things. So inhibition, massive with inhibition, self-awareness, self-motivation, all that kind of stuff. Like it doesn't work properly. So I was self-medicating. My dopamine levels, if there were a set of scales, mine were tipped to one side. Constantly chasing dopamine, constantly chasing things that make me feel better. So if it was cake, or if it was beer, or if it was drugs, or if it was blooming, I don't know, my favourite magazine, it was always head first. It was never a normal kind of progression. It was go gadget, take it too far. And also I've got RSD as well, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which I won't go into on here because we'll be here all day.
But please, can you just give me a top line? I'm fascinated.
Okay, so I'm quite controversial with this, right? So rejection sensitivity. Rejection sensitivity is a massive thing with ADHD, okay? So we've all got rejections. Well, not all of us. Me personally, I've got really bad rejection sensitivity. Now, I think that's due to growing up, past traumas, as in bullying, yeah? I'm not blaming everything on that, but I'm just saying it's a contributor. And that plus my environment growing up and the things that I've done and experienced, I think that's part of why I'm so sensitive, why I see things in a way that I do. I see the worst in things, blah blah blah, and that is the thing. But there's also a thing called rejection sensitivity dysphoria, right, which a top professional created, and basically the outlook on that is that you're born with it. It's nothing to do with trauma. You're born with that. It's part of you. And basically there's a lot of thing around where therapy doesn't work. If you've got RSD, you've got RSD. It's got to be medication, and it's a part of you, nothing to do with trauma. Now, I think personally, I'm not a professional, but definitely trauma has made a part of it. And also I've had a lot of therapy, a lot of therapy, and I know for a fact that's helped me massively. So I normally just say rejection sensitivity. I knock off the dysphoria. I'll probably get loads of hate for saying that, but
no, thank you for explaining that. That's super interesting.
That's RSD.
And
so now I've gone off topic now, sorry.
That's okay. I'm just so curious. So please tell me if I'm asking too many questions around mental health.
Ask anything you want. Completely open book.
The cyclothymia. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, cyclothymia.
Was that diagnosed at the same time as ADHD?
No, so I went to my whole life I had cycles, right, of where I'd be like absolutely fine, and then I'd hit the old F it button, and then I'd be like, right, go. And then I'd have cycles where I would drink and take drugs constantly, not care about the repercussions, and that would go on for 2 weeks to start with. Then I'd be fine. I'd do it again, 3 weeks, do it again, until it got to a point where I did it for 6 weeks straight, waking up drinking, drink, drugs, and I fell to my knees, and that's when I had a breakdown and went to the Priory. So I've forgotten the question now. And cyclothymia, sorry. And then when I went to the Priory the first time for addiction, I'd been on a 6-week spiral of constantly drinking. Like, I'm talking constantly drinking, constantly taking drugs. I'm surprised. I'm so grateful to have come through that. Anyway, so and I got diagnosed then with cyclothymia, and that's basically bipolar type 3. It's quite they say new. I don't think it's very odd, but it's basically cycles of being manic and cycles of being depressed. So very high, very low. It's cycles of that, but it's not like bipolar type 2 or bipolar type 1 in regards to they're not so dramatically high or low. So bipolar type 1 is the most severe, from what I know. I'm not a professional. And then bipolar type 2, it's to do with differences in how often you have these cycles and things like that, and how severe they are. Cyclothymia is like a lessened version. So you're not so North Pole, you're not so South Pole. So they basically diagnosed me with that, saying that I was having cycles of highs, cycles of very low, self-medicating because of that. And then that's why I was having these cycles of these things. But when you've got cyclothymia, there's not really a reason as to why you have these cycles. So you'll wake up one morning and you'll randomly be really low, but you won't know why. Whereas we then discovered when I went back for a second time, there were a lot of reasons why I was having these cycles around personal stuff, around my environment, around things. And I saw an ADHD specialist, and he said straight away, this is ADHD, it's not cyclothymia. But then they're linked. So there's I'm going on here. I'm so sorry, right? But they're linked.
It's fascinating.
So cyclothymia and ADHD and things like a lot of this, mental health disorders. It is a lot of links to ADHD. So it's all kind of like relevant. So now I'm kind of like I've been told I've got ADHD, strong, ADHD, and then I've got traits of cyclothymia. So I mean, I don't know how to translate that specifically, but I have both apparently, and I am on medication for both. So
okay, that was going to be my next question. So
medication's a good one.
Yeah.
So cyclothymia, bipolar type 3, plus ADHD. Makes a very great working great brain to have, doesn't it?
Concoction. Well, I mean, I'd love to know what for you was the biggest game changer out of all of that. Was it the diagnosis of ADHD, and what has the treatment plan been for you to make such a profound recovery over the last 12 months?
So when I went to the Priory the first time, it was like game over. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but it was so bad. It was like you either stop drinking and taking drugs, or you're going to die, basically. So that was the thing. And then I came out and I was in denial. So I was doing it for everyone else. I was doing it for my family and everyone who'd put me in there. So when I came out, I then had the biggest rock bottom I've ever had in my life. And then I went back again, and that was when it was like, right, what's going on here? And by luck, actually, I had a one-to-one therapy session with someone who specialises in ADHD, and he is incredible. He was like, A, B, C. I'd had so much therapy, but never ever clicked. Nothing ever, like, I was always like, yeah. This guy, his name's Dominic, he's unbelievable. He basically said, do you feel like this? I told him my life story and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's me. That's me all over. Do you feel like you're self-medicating? Do you feel like you're constantly feeling like this? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I think you've got ADHD. So I did I did some work, some tools. I don't know. We spoke about it a lot. And then basically I had an external assessment with a top psychiatrist in London. He's amazing, very expensive. But, and it was so thorough. I spoke to him for like 6-7 hours over 2 sessions. So
wow.
Yeah, this is the importance, you see, like with ADHD, is it has to be really thorough, anyway. And it has to be affecting a lot of the areas as well. It's not just like, I don't feel like I'm very attentive at times. That's not ADHD. That's just life, But this is like, anyway. So I had that, and then the minute I was put on medication, so I was put on a stimulant called Elvance, lisdexamfetamine, and I was put on that. And the minute, I swear to you, I say this, and people are like, they find it hard to believe, right? But but as soon as I took that medication, a light switch went on. It's been a year in November 1st. I don't even think about drinking in that sense. I don't ever have any cravings. I don't ever want to drink. Don't ever want to take drugs. I wake up now and I'm just like, I feel balanced. Does that make sense? So it's like, as soon as I had that medication, and the second time round in the Priory, and I was like, it wasn't all medication, it's been my mindset and what I've done since. So we can talk about that in a minute. But that medication has just been a lifesaver. Literally a lifesaver. A lot of people are pro meds or they're con meds. They've got a lot of things. And fair play, it's for the individual, isn't it? It's whatever works for you. But I had no choice. I was at a crossroads. I was either left, it's the end, or right, okay, let's just try this. And I tried it, and I've never looked back. And that's literally the honest truth. It's been amazing.
It's fascinating. I'd love to know your opinion, Luke. It feels to me right now, in this moment in time, that almost every person I speak to is going to the doctor, getting diagnosed with ADHD. And I have no experience personally, so I don't judge it. I don't like it is what it is. But I'm something in me is like, surely this can't have come out of nowhere for this amount of people. But maybe it has. And like, what are your thoughts around all of that? And, if someone's listening who perhaps is in that boat where they're, like you said, they've struggled to focus, and there's a few things that they've heard are related to ADHD, but it's not the full picture. Like, what sort of steps would someone take to exploring this avenue in more depth?
Okay, I'll try not to go on a rant here, but basically, ADHD has become a bit of a hot topic because everyone's gone so aware now of these things. The problem is lack of education, which is fair enough, because I wouldn't go and randomly look up, I don't know, some sort of disorder, mental health disorder I don't have, because why would you? But there's not enough education on it. People aren't really aware of the ins and outs of what it means. There's a lot of stigma around it. Naughty kids, lack of focus, laziness, all this kind of rubbish, and it's not about that at all. Anyway, so a lot of people are going to their local GP. The GPs are then referring them, and it's just gone a bit mad. Now, the reason why it's made me it's so relevant to talk about this is because there's a national shortage of ADHD medication. So I'm not saying I'm more important than anyone else, but because of me, I feel like that's my lifesaver. I can't get my medication, so I'm actually in the moment talking to my doctor, who has to talk to a psychiatrist. My psychiatrist is £200 for 20 minutes. I can't afford to go and talk to him about redoing medication. So they're talking about putting me on something completely different, which is not good. And this is all around what we've just said, the hot topic of ADHD. overdiagnosis or a massive increase in diagnosis, and that's fair enough because there are a lot of people who have got ADHD. Yeah, I'm not denying that,
No doubt.
not denying that. But I think there's just been this like hot topic thing where it's being thrown around. The message isn't there. Like if you've got ADHD, you have to have it severe enough that it affects your life in a negative way. Yeah, so it's not just hyperactivity or I lose focus or I've lost my car keys again or everyone always I've got that. I'm like that all the time. I must have ADHD. Like no, like I've just said to you, it's about the workings of your brain. It's a lot of so many things and it is annoying, yeah. So I mean, if you think you've got ADHD, what I would suggest is what I did is I buried my head in education for myself, self-motivated learning. So I listened to a lot of podcasts on ADHD. I read loads of stuff, and then you'll get to a point where you know what to filter out because there's a lot of misinformed. What's the word? a lot of things. Yes. So there's attitudes, right, which is the main massive. But there are things on there. God, I'm going to get cancelled. If there are things on here, you won't be able to edit. You won't be able to post it. There's things on there that are very internal. So you'll have like this RSD thing was created by someone who's in attitude, and then the source will be someone else who's on attitude. So the backup science isn't always there. RSD hasn't got that much research into it, which is why you get miscommunications, blah, 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 blah. So if I was you, I would listen to a podcast called I Have ADHD, and it's with Kristen Carter. Her name's Kristen Carter. She's incredible, and what she does is she debunks it all, says it how it is, and there's actually a series on executive dysfunction. There's a series on, I mean, she's got ADHD, she's a life coach, all this stuff. Anyway, and I just listen to all of her stuff because she's amazing.
Awesome.
She's amazing.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll pop all of that info. I'll pop that link in the episode show notes so people can check that out if they're interested. That's super helpful. Thank you, Luke. And so you spoke about this different mindset approach that you've now adopted over the last 12 months. And I want to know, like, share with us the ins and outs of how you have had such a profound shift in your life, because it's incredible.
I mean, I look back at the last year and it's literally like 10 years all rolled into one.
It feels a bit like that, doesn't it? Early recovery.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So basically, such a big shift because I mean, unfortunately for me, but I actually think it's very fortunate. Like I had what I call a sledgehammer moment where it was like, I have to sort myself out or I'm not going to be here anymore. And I think that's sometimes, obviously it's horrible and horrendous, but I'm so glad because it's made me sort myself out. And it's really like, it was like opening doors to life, you know. I was like, right, I need to get out there. So I just put key pillars into my life, and I was like, what am I going to do to get myself better? So I was like structure, routine, pencil in milestones. So always have something in the calendar to look forward to, have goals and all around different things. So connection for me is so important. Sorry.
What are some examples of the milestones and the goals that you set for yourself?
Mine was around physical health, mental health. I mean, I decided this. This isn't, someone didn't tell me, but like physical health, mental health, and then like personal goals around my life, my lifestyle. So mental health, obviously, I've told you all about that. So that was all about learning, therapy, journaling, gratitude, things like that. Then physical health. I was 2 stone heavier. My blood pressure was through the roof. My heart rate was terrible, and I was having palpitations. I had liver damage that luckily was repairable, but I had liver damage, and all this kind of thing. And I basically dropped the 2 stone through consistency, exercise, lifestyle changes, diet. Then my blood pressure is absolutely perfect now. My heart's perfect now. I had an ECG, and my liver has fully repaired. And it's only been however long. It's only minor damage, right? But so I can't remember the question.
That's incredible. How did you
Uh,
do that? Like, so you set yourself the goals, but how, like, what did you actually do? Like, you
so
mentioned running.
yeah, so morning routine for me, morning routine, evening routine, morning routine, 5 a.m. club. I got up at 5 every single morning, no matter what, forced myself, had to. Got outside, natural sunlight, great for your body clock, blah, blah. And then you go for a run. I went for a run. I started out walking because I wanted to be accountable. So I was like, I'm gonna raise money for mental health. So I did, the charity Mind, if you know that, Mind UK, or whatever. I raised money for them, and I did it by walking. So I was like, right,
Awesome.
I can't run. I've just been like, I was like 2 stone heavier, and I was really unhealthy. So I just
Yeah.
walked, and just kept walking every day. And then I post it on Instagram, which is probably very annoying for people. But it was accountability. So I was giving myself, people would ask me if I didn't post. So it was like forcing me almost, but I was doing a good thing. So I did that. And then diet, and then I went on to running. So I was like, right, I'm gonna do a half marathon. There's the milestone. Split it into like little milestones, 5K, whatever, however long, and then I'd hit that. And I was lucky that I had a group of friends. One of them's a running coach, so we were all accountable there. We were messaging all the time. And then half marathon. Next is a marathon. I started hiking. I'll climb a mountain. So I've done Snowdonia. Me and my friend Robbie are going to do Ben Nevis next year. So things like this that make you happy, but also boost your mental health, boost your physical health, keep you on the straight and narrow. And it's just all, that's basically how I did it, to be honest. And just connection. Don't suffer in silence. Don't be on your own. Never be on your own, because that's the problem for me, was the problem for me. And get on a sober platform. There's so many now, so many different things. I'm not plugging mine. I'm just saying, I connected online through a platform called Dry, which is just incredible. It's amazing.
Nat Pink, shout out!
Yeah, Matt is an absolute legend. I love Matt so much.
He is. Friend of the show, we love him.
Yeah, so that was the big thing for me. Dry. I got on Dry, and then through that, I'm now a Life member where I help out and things. Like I covered Matt's morning live a couple of days ago, and things like that. So it's amazing, and I connected through people. So on that platform, I think that helped me probably the most. And then obviously consistency, routine, learning about my brain, learning about everything to do with yourself, what you're going through, and basically reaching out. Don't be on your own. I can't remember what your question was now. I've just gone off for like.
No. Answered it perfectly. I wanted to know, like, what did you do that was tangible that people could listen along to and perhaps replicate? And I love what you said about literally just getting yourself up every morning, staying consistent, staying accountable, walking, connection. Talk to me about vulnerability. How's that played an importance over the last year for you?
Absolutely huge. Like I always talk about this. Like vulnerability is showing vulnerability is the strongest thing you could ever do. Like, and we have this perception that it's a weakness. Now, obviously, it's for men and women, but being a man and knowing what it's like, especially here, in this country, lads are too scared to speak up about their feelings. They feel like they have to carry this burden on their own. They feel like they're going to be seen as weak if they don't speak out about their mental health. And it's absolute rubbish. It's just rubbish. And all it does is just build it up inside you until you do what I did, and you just like lose it and end up self-medicating all the time. I know so many people who just go out at weekends and they just fill their lives with toxicity like poison, just to forget about the week, and forget about how they're feeling inside. So vulnerability is huge. And I isolated for so long that I nearly ended it all. And now I'm sat here talking to you, and the reason why I'm sat here talking to you is because I showed my vulnerability. I showed my feelings. I reached out, and all it takes is a message. You don't have to call anyone. Just drop a WhatsApp to someone and say, I'm really struggling here, mate. And then luckily my parents were so supportive. So I spoke to my dad, and that's made us closer. We've connected through that. And vulnerability for me has been huge. It's been a lifesaver. And that's why, like, the stigma around blooming, don't talk about your feelings, like, be a man, crying's a weakness. It's absolute swear, rubbish, absolute rubbish. So for me, vulnerability is like a massive thing. Like, it's changed my life. It's ridiculous
so
how
powerful.
so
And
powerful.
it amazes me how when you show up vulnerably, it almost gives the other person permission to let down their guard as well. And that's where, like you touched on, that beautiful connection starts to form.
Exactly. And this is why it's like, if you're thinking of going sober, or if you're in a rut and you're feeling like hopeless, like it's like, I think, who says this? It's Steve-O. It's like jumping in a pool. Like, if you think about jumping into a cold pool too much, you're never going to dip your toe in, are you? So what do? You jump in, and as soon as you've jumped in, yeah, it's uncomfortable, yeah, it's cold, but give it 10 minutes and you're warm, you're glad you did it, it's great. You know, you don't want to get out, but that's what it's like. You have to. Like, I was in such denial, and I hated the fact that I was showing vulnerability. That's why it got to the point that it did. Drinking constantly on my own in the dark room for 6 weeks, horrendous. As soon as I reached out and was vulnerable, like, and showed strength, now look, massively changed my life around, massively. So yeah, I mean. What was the question again? You said I've got ADHD. I just go off on one.
You answered the question. You answered it perfectly. Just how vulnerability played out in your life.
There you go.
Luke,
yeah.
I've got one last question for you before we wrap up today.
Yeah.
This is a question that I ask all of my guests, so I'm really looking forward to hearing your answer on this one. What are your 3 non-negotiables that allow you to live your life today happy, joyous, and free?
Non-negotiables. So number 1. Right, my non-negotiable is isolated on my own, being on my own. No, hang on, I've done that the wrong way around, haven't I?
Not being on your own, right?
Not being on my own. Non-negotiable is connection. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Reach out to people, like, talk. It's just been amazing. So yeah, don't isolate ever again. Number 2 is, I mean, non-negotiable is a hard word. Self-forgiveness. I find it so hard to forgive myself about the things that I've done, because we haven't even touched on it today, really. But self-forgiveness. Now, I think, yeah, self-development in that area. So a non-negotiable for me is carrying on, being consistent in regards to working on me as a person, like forgiving myself, and being accountable for that. So that's number 2. Number 3, non-negotiable. Never, this might be the same as number 1, never let things spiral out of control without addressing them straight away. I'm never ever gonna ignore things. I mean, like relapse and stuff, you have those thoughts weeks before you even pick up the drink. Recognize them, nip them in the bud, talk about it, connection, and that's what I'll never do ever again. I'll never suffer in silence. That's why I'm on podcasts. That's why I'm doing what I'm trying to spread the word of, like, do not suffer in silence, show the strength and vulnerability, and yeah, just reach out, because it can get so bad so quickly. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Thank you, Luke. That's
my
awesome.
absolute pleasure.
Perfect message to end on today. We say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one need suffer in silence. So thank you so much for being here with me today and for sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
A big thank you for tuning in today. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button and leaving a review. Every review helps this podcast become more discoverable, meaning more people can hear these stories of strength and hope. Together, we will continue to remove the stigma around mental health, trauma, and addiction. Remember to reach out to those you care about, and I'll see you next time.